Welcome to my channel. Don't forget to subscribe.
Tom Miller never asked to be stationed on Outpost 7, the most boring human settlement in the entire galaxy. 3 years into his 5-year contract as a botanist, he had cataloged every plant within 50 miles of the base. His days fell into a dull pattern of maintenance, research reports, and waiting for supply ships to bring news from Earth. That changed the day the alien delegation arrived. The Vardi were the first non-human species humans had encountered. Tall, with blue skin and 4 arms, they looked intimidating but proved to be peaceful. Their technology far surpassed human capabilities, which was why Earth's governments were eager to establish good relations. Tom wasn't supposed to be at the welcome ceremony. He was meant to be checking moisture levels in the greenhouse, but curiosity got the better of him. He slipped into the back of the crowded reception hall just as Captain Reed was introducing the Vardi ambassador. "We are honored by your presence," Reed said, bowing slightly. "We hope this marks the beginning of a lasting friendship between our peoples." The ambassador nodded, her silver eyes scanning the room. "We share that hope." That's when Tom noticed her, a young Vardi female standing slightly behind the ambassador. Unlike the others who wore formal robes, she was dressed in what appeared to be their version of casual clothing. She looked bored. Their eyes met across the room. Tom quickly looked away, embarrassed to be caught staring. When he glanced back, she was walking directly toward him. "You are different from the others," she said, her translator device making her words sound slightly mechanical. "You are not a soldier or a diplomat." Tom swallowed hard. "I'm a botanist. I study plants." Her silver eyes widened with interest. "Plants? We have scientists who study plant life too." She extended one of her lower arms in greeting. "I am Nala." "Tom," he replied, carefully shaking her hand. Nala glanced around to make sure no one was watching them. "The adults will be talking politics for hours. Show me something interesting on this planet." "There's not much to see," Tom admitted. "Just the outpost and some basic vegetation." Nala's expression changed to something Tom recognized despite her alien features: disappointment. "Our world has forests with trees that sing in the wind," she said. "We have flowers that change color with the seasons. Your Earth has countless plant species. This place has nothing special?" Tom felt a strange need to defend his work. "There are some interesting adaptive traits in the local flora. I've been documenting." "Boring," Nala interrupted. "I thought humans were supposed to be adventurous." Something in her tone sparked a mixture of annoyance and determination in Tom. "What would impress you, then?" Nala thought for a moment, then her lips curved into what Tom assumed was a smile. "On our world, there is a legend of a flower called the starlight bloom. It's said to grow only in places where starlight touches soil that has never been walked on. It blooms once every 100 years and glows with its own inner light." Her eyes gleamed mischievously. "Find me something like that, something impossible, and I'll be impressed." Before Tom could respond, one of the other Vardi called Nala back to the delegation. "I'll be here for 14 of your days," she said over her shoulder. "Surprise me, plant man." That night, Tom couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about Nala's challenge and the dismissive way she had talked about his work. Sure, Outpost 7 didn't have singing trees or color-changing flowers, but there was beauty here if you knew where to look. He pulled up his research files and began reviewing plant specimens he had cataloged. There was nothing that would impress someone whose world had the wonders Nala described. But then he remembered something, an entry in his journal from his first year at the outpost. A local guide had mentioned stories about strange lights seen in the distant western mountains after meteor showers. Tom had dismissed it as folklore, but now he wondered. The mountains were outside the explored zone, technically off-limits without special permission. No human had set foot there as far as he knew. Starlight touching soil that had never been walked on. In the dim light of his quarters, Tom began to plan. He would need supplies, equipment, and a way to slip away from the outpost without alerting security. It was reckless, potentially dangerous, and definitely against regulations. But as the first light of dawn crept through his window, Tom had made up his mind. He was going to find an impossible flower, or create a convincing alternative. Either way, he was going to wipe that smug look off Nala's alien face. The western mountains loomed in the distance, their peaks lost in swirling clouds. Tom checked his equipment one last time before slinging his pack over his shoulders. He had told his supervisor he was taking samples from the Southern Valley, a small lie that would give him 3 days before anyone started asking questions. Tom had borrowed a rover from the motor pool, leaving a maintenance request form that would keep it officially out of service. The bumpy ride across the plains took most of the day, bringing him to the foothills as the sun began to set. As he drove, Tom kept thinking about Nala and her challenge. There was something about the alien girl that got under his skin. Maybe it was her casual dismissal of his work, or maybe it was simply that she was the most interesting thing to happen on Outpost 7 in 3 years. The rover could go no further as the terrain became too steep and rocky. Tom parked it in a protected hollow and continued on foot. His pack felt heavier with each step upward, and soon his breathing came in ragged gasps. The air was thinner here, and despite his physical training, the climb was taking its toll. "This is crazy," he muttered to himself as he set up camp in a small cave. "Risking my job and possibly my life to impress an alien who probably won't care anyway." Night fell quickly in the mountains. Tom sat at the mouth of the cave, eating a ration bar and staring at the stars. They seemed brighter here, away from the lights of the outpost. A meteor streaked across the sky, leaving a glowing trail in its wake. The local guide's stories echoed in his mind. Strange lights after meteor showers. What if there was some truth to those tales? Tom woke before dawn and continued his ascent. His scanner showed unusual mineral deposits higher up, which might explain the stories of strange lights. Certain minerals could glow when exposed to radiation from meteor debris. By midday, he reached a high plateau that stretched between 2 towering peaks. The area was strangely flat, almost as if it had been shaped by artificial means. Tom approached slowly, his scientific curiosity piqued. The plateau was covered with dark, glassy soil unlike anything he'd seen before in this region. Testing showed it was rich in rare minerals, with a composition similar to volcanic glass but with unexplained elements mixed in. "This isn't natural," Tom said aloud, though there was no one to hear him. He took samples, made notes, and continued exploring. As the day progressed, storm clouds gathered above the mountains. Tom knew he should find shelter, but he was too intrigued by his discovery to turn back. The wind picked up, howling between the peaks, and the first drops of rain began to fall. Then he saw it, a small depression in the center of the plateau, perfectly circular like a crater. The soil inside was darker than the surrounding area, almost black. Tom approached cautiously, scanner in hand. The readings were off the charts. Something about this spot was different at an atomic level, as if the very fabric of reality was slightly altered here. The storm broke in earnest. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking Tom within seconds. Lightning flashed overhead, followed by deafening thunder. He needed to find shelter immediately. As he turned to leave, a bolt of lightning struck the center of the crater with blinding intensity. The force of it knocked Tom off his feet, sending him sprawling on the wet glass-like ground. When his vision cleared, he saw that the lightning had fused the black soil into a crystalline structure. And within that structure, something was happening. The crystal began to glow with a soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Tom crawled forward, mesmerized. The rain continued to fall, but he hardly noticed. With trembling hands, he took out a specimen container and carefully collected a piece of the glowing crystal. As night fell and the storm passed, Tom made camp at the edge of the plateau. He couldn't take his eyes off the crystal specimen, which continued to glow with its own inner light. When he ran tests on it, the results were unlike anything in his database. "What are you?" he whispered, turning the crystal fragment in his hands. That night, as Tom finally drifted off to sleep, the crystal's glow intensified. Tiny filaments began to extend from its surface, reaching out like roots seeking soil. By morning, Tom awoke to find something impossible had happened. Where the crystal fragment had been, A small bud had formed, pulsing with the same blue light. Before his astonished eyes, the buds slowly began to unfold. What Tom didn't know was that his discovery was far more significant than winning a dare from an alien girl. It would change everything, for humanity, for the Vardi, and for Tom himself. Tom watched in wonder as the crystal bud continued to unfold. By midday, it had transformed into something that could only be described as a flower, though unlike any flower he had ever seen or studied. Its petals were translucent, with delicate veins running through them that pulsed with blue-white light. The center of the flower contained what looked like tiny stars, points of intense brightness that twinkled as if responding to some unheard music. "This is impossible," Tom whispered, his scientific mind racing to explain what he was seeing. He carefully documented the flower's development, taking photos and scanning it with every instrument he had brought. The results defied conventional botany. The flower, if it could be called that, wasn't made of organic material as earth plants were. It seemed to exist somewhere between matter and energy, more like a stable quantum phenomenon than a living organism. Yet it responded to its environment, turning toward the sun, closing slightly when Tom cast a shadow over it. He named it Stella Impossibilis, the impossible star. As fascinating as his discovery was, Tom knew he needed to return to the outpost. His 3-day window was almost up, and staying longer would trigger a search party. Besides, he wanted to show Nala what he had found. Carefully, Tom transplanted the flower into a special container designed for transporting sensitive specimens. To his surprise, the flower detached easily from the crystal base, its roots, if they could be called that, wrapping themselves around his fingers for a moment before settling into the container. It felt like a living thing seeking connection. The journey back was harder than the climb up. Tom's pack seemed twice as heavy, and his mind was preoccupied with questions about his discovery. What was this flower? How had it formed? Was it truly alive, or something else entirely? By the time Tom reached the rover, night had fallen again. He slept in the vehicle, the flower's soft glow providing enough light to see by. In the darkness, he noticed that the pattern of light within the petals had changed, forming what looked like constellations he didn't recognize. Tom arrived back at Outpost 7 just as alarms were beginning to sound. His absence had been noticed, and a search was being organized. Captain Reed was furious. "3 days of unauthorized absence, Miller!" he shouted. "Stolen equipment, falsified reports. I should have you shipped back to Earth on the next transport." Tom said nothing in his defense. His eyes kept darting to the container holding his discovery. Reed noticed his distraction. "What's in that container that's so important you risked court-martial for it?" Before Tom could answer, the door to the commander's office slid open. Nala walked in, followed by the Vardi ambassador. "We were concerned when we heard a human had gone missing," the ambassador said. "We are relieved to see you are safe." Nala's silver eyes fixed on Tom. "Did you find something interesting, Plant Man?" There was a hint of genuine curiosity in her voice now, not just the bored challenge from before. Tom placed the container on Reed's desk and carefully opened it. The room filled with soft blue light as the flower was revealed. The effect on the Vardi was immediate and shocking. The ambassador gasped, all 4 hands reaching out as if to touch the flower before pulling back in reverence. Nala dropped to her knees, her eyes wide with what looked like awe or fear. Tom couldn't tell which. "Impossible," the ambassador whispered, using her own voice rather than the translator. "The cosmic bloom. It is real." Reed looked between the aliens and Tom in confusion. "Someone want to tell me what's going on?" Nala looked up at Tom with new respect in her eyes. "In our most ancient texts there are stories of the first ones, beings who came before the Vardi. They left behind gifts, markers of their passage through the cosmos. The greatest of these was said to be the cosmic bloom, a living star that would only appear to those worthy of the knowledge it contained." She stood, approaching the flower with reverence. "For thousands of years, our people searched for it. Many believed it was just a myth. Others devoted their lives to finding it." Her eyes met Tom's. "And you, a human, found it in days." The ambassador stepped forward. This changes everything. If the bloom has appeared to humans, then. She stopped, seeming to reconsider her words. Then what? Tom asked. The ambassador exchanged a look with Nala. Then the prophecy must be true. Humans are the inheritors. Captain Reed had heard enough. What prophecy? Inheritors of what? Nala reached out slowly, her fingers hovering near the flower without touching it. The future of the galaxy, she said softly. According to our oldest beliefs, the species that finds the bloom is destined to lead all others into a new age. As if responding to her presence, the flower's glow intensified. The star-like points at its center began to arrange themselves into patterns, projecting tiny points of light into the air above it. It's some kind of map, Tom realized, watching the three-dimensional star chart take shape above the flower. The ambassador's voice was hushed with wonder. Not just a map. It's the path to the first ones themselves. Within hours, Outpost 7 was transformed. Emergency communications went out to Earth and the Vardi homeworld. Scientists from both species crowded into the base's largest laboratory, all eyes fixed on the glowing flower Tom had discovered. Tom stood to the side, somewhat forgotten in the excitement. He watched as experts argued over the nature of the bloom, the meaning of the star map it projected, and the implications of the Vardi prophecy. Captain Reed had gone from threatening court-martial to treating Tom with careful respect. That was the strangest part for Tom, seeing fear in Reed's eyes when the captain looked at him, as if Tom had suddenly become something dangerous or unknown. You should be in there, Nala said, appearing beside him. It's your discovery. Tom shrugged. I'm just a botanist. Those people are top scientists and diplomats. Nala made a sound that Tom's translator didn't catch, perhaps a laugh or scoff. You found what generations of my people could not. That makes you more important than all of them. Before Tom could respond, alarms blared throughout the outpost. Red warning lights flashed in the corridors. Attention all personnel, the automated system announced. Unknown vessels approaching. Defense Protocol Alpha initiated. The scientists scattered, screens throughout the laboratory switching to external views. 3 massive ships had appeared in orbit around the planet, their designs unlike anything human or Vardi. The first ones, someone whispered. They've returned. Panic swept through the room. The Vardi ambassador called for calm, but her own 4 hands trembled visibly. In the chaos, Tom noticed something no one else did. The flower had changed. Its glow had intensified, and the star map it projected was shifting, focusing on a single point that pulsed urgently. It's trying to tell us something, Tom said, but no one was listening. No one except Nala. She moved beside him, studying the flower with the same intensity he was. You're right. It's not random. Look! She pointed to the pulsing point in the projection. That's here. This planet. A communication came through on all channels. A voice spoke, not in English or the Vardi language, yet somehow understandable to everyone. The bloom has awakened. The test begins. The laboratory fell silent. All eyes turned to the main screen, which now showed a figure. It was humanoid but clearly alien, tall and slender with skin that seemed to shimmer with starlight. We are the Watchers, the figure said. Left behind when the first ones departed this galaxy. For 1,000,000 years we have waited for the worthy to find our sign. The ambassador stepped forward. We are honored by your presence. The Vardi have long awaited your return. The Watcher's gaze seemed to look through her. You are not the discoverers. Where is the one who found the bloom? All eyes turned to Tom. He felt a moment of panic, but Nala gave him a small push forward. I found it, Tom said, his voice steadier than he expected. In the western mountains, after a lightning strike. The Watcher studied him. A simple seeker, not hunting for power or glory. This is fitting. The alien's attention shifted to the flower. The bloom is more than a map or a sign. It is a key, a test of readiness. Readiness for what? Captain Reed demanded. For inheritance, the Watcher replied. The first ones left behind more than legends. They left knowledge, technology, and powers your species have only begun to imagine. But such gifts cannot be given lightly. They must be earned. The Watcher's image seemed to flicker. The ships you see are empty vessels. They contain the trials. 3 tests for 3 ships. Success in all 3 will prove your worthiness as inheritors. Tom found his voice again. And if we fail? Then the bloom withers, the ships depart, and your chance is lost for another 1,000 years. The room erupted in argument. The human scientists insisted they needed time to prepare, to bring experts from Earth. The Vardi delegation claimed historical right to attempt the trials first. Through it all, Tom stayed silent, watching the flower. Its light pulsed in a pattern that felt increasingly urgent, almost like a heartbeat growing faster with anxiety. Nala noticed it too. It's responding to the conflict, she whispered. I think it's disappointed. Tom understood somehow. The flower hadn't appeared to start a power struggle between species. That wasn't the point of the test. Without thinking about consequences, Tom stepped forward. I'll go, he announced, cutting through the arguments. I found the bloom. I'll take the tests. The room fell silent again. The Watcher's expression remained unreadable, but Tom thought he detected approval. You cannot represent humanity in this, Reed protested. This requires a team, experts. The Discoverer has spoken, the Watcher interrupted. The right is his. Nala stepped forward to stand beside Tom. He won't go alone. I will accompany him. The ambassador gasped. Nala, you cannot. I can and I will, Nala said firmly. I challenged him to find the impossible. I should face the consequences alongside him. The Watcher studied them both, human and Vardi standing together. Perhaps, the alien said softly, you already begin to understand the first lesson. With that, the image vanished, and Tom felt a strange tingling sensation wash over him. The flower's light enveloped both him and Nala, and the laboratory around them began to fade. The last thing Tom heard was Reed shouting his name. Then there was only light, and the sense of being carried upward toward the waiting ships. Tom and Nala materialized inside a vast chamber. Walls of shimmering metal stretched upward to a ceiling that displayed the stars outside as if it weren't there at all. The flower floated between them, its glow more subdued now but still pulsing gently. Are we on one of the ships? Tom asked, his voice echoing slightly in the enormous space. Nala nodded, her forearms hugging her body as if for comfort. The first ship. I can feel it. A doorway appeared in the wall before them, opening to reveal a long corridor. As they approached, the Watcher's voice filled the chamber. The first ones valued 3 virtues above all others: wisdom to discern truth, courage to face fear, and unity to transcend difference. Each ship tests 1 virtue. You may attempt them in any order. Tom looked at Nala. Which one do you think this is? Before she could answer, the flower drifted toward the doorway as if pulled by an invisible force. They followed it into the corridor, which led to another chamber. This one was smaller, with a pedestal in the center. On it rested what looked like a simple puzzle box. The test of wisdom begins, announced the Watcher's voice. Solve the puzzle to proceed. Tom approached the box cautiously. It was made of a material that resembled wood but felt cool like metal. Its surface was covered with intricate patterns that shifted and changed as he watched. I'm not good at puzzles, Tom admitted, turning to Nala. Is this something your people would know about? Nala shook her head. The first ones left us legends, not instructions. She joined him at the pedestal. But 2 minds are better than 1, right? They studied the puzzle box together. Tom noticed that when they touched different parts of it, the patterns reacted differently. Some grew brighter, others dimmed. It's responding to us, Tom said. Like the flower did. Hours passed as they worked on the puzzle. The patterns seemed to follow rules they couldn't quite grasp, mathematical in some ways, but with exceptions that defied logic. Whenever they thought they'd found the solution, the box would shift and present a new challenge. Frustration mounted. Tom sat back, running his hands through his hair. This is impossible. We've tried everything. Nala, who had been unusually quiet for the past hour, looked up suddenly. No, we haven't. She pointed to the flower, which had settled on the floor nearby. We haven't asked for help. Tom frowned. From the flower? How would we? Not asking with words, Nala interrupted. With intent. The flower is connected to the first one somehow. It led us to the mountain, it showed us the map, it brought us here. She reached for Tom's hand. Let's try together. Feeling slightly foolish but willing to try anything, Tom took Nala's hand. They both focused on the flower, mentally directing their questions toward it. To their amazement, the flower responded. Its glow brightened, and the light it cast fell on certain parts of the puzzle box, highlighting patterns they hadn't noticed before. It's showing us the way, Tom whispered. With the flower's guidance, they began to understand. The puzzle wasn't meant to be solved through logic alone, but through intuition and connection. Working together, they followed the flower's subtle hints, touching the patterns in a sequence that felt right rather than calculated. The box began to transform, its sides unfolding like petals until it formed a shape similar to the flower itself. At its center was a small crystal, pulsing with the same light. The test of wisdom is passed, the Watcher's voice announced. Not through knowledge alone, but through understanding that wisdom sometimes means knowing when to seek guidance. The room shifted around them, and they found themselves back in the main chamber. 2 more doorways had appeared, leading to the other tests. 1 down, 2 to go, Tom said, feeling a new confidence. He looked at Nala, who seemed similarly encouraged. Which next? Courage or unity? Nala's silver eyes met his. Courage, she said firmly. I think we'll need it for whatever comes after. The second doorway led them to a different ship. This chamber was dark, with only the flower's glow providing light. As they entered, the floor beneath them became transparent, revealing what looked like an endless drop into space. Tom's stomach lurched. He had never been comfortable with heights, and the illusion of standing on nothing was terrifying. Beside him, Nala made a small sound of distress. Her species, it seemed, shared a similar fear. The test of courage begins, the Watcher announced. To proceed, you must cross. Across the seemingly bottomless chasm, a platform floated with another crystal on it. Between them and it was nothing but the illusion of empty space. It's not real, Tom said, trying to convince himself. It can't be real. He took a tentative step forward and felt solid ground beneath his foot, despite seeing nothing there. Another step. Another. The ground was invisible but present. Nala remained frozen at the edge. I can't, she whispered. In our history, many Vardi died in the Great Void. Fear of falling is in our blood. Tom looked back at her, then at the distant platform. He could probably make it across alone, but something told him that wasn't the point of the test. He returned to Nala and offered his hand. We do this together or not at all. I'll slow you down, she protested. Then we'll go slowly, Tom replied with a smile. 1 step at a time. With Tom's encouragement, Nala took her first tentative step onto the invisible bridge. She trembled violently, all 4 hands gripping his arms. But she didn't retreat. Step by careful step, they made their way across the chasm. Tom talked continuously, distracting Nala with stories about Earth, questions about her world, anything to keep her mind off the emptiness below them. When they finally reached the platform, the crystal activated at their touch, filling the room with light. The illusion of the chasm vanished, revealing a normal floor that had been there all along. The test of courage is passed, announced the Watcher. Not through fearlessness, but through perseverance despite fear, and through helping others face their own fears. As they returned to the main chamber, Tom and Nala exchanged a look of growing understanding. The tests weren't what they had expected. They weren't about power or knowledge or even individual achievement. Only one test remained, unity. And somehow, Tom thought, they were already beginning to understand what it might require. The final doorway led to the third ship. Unlike the previous chambers, this one was filled with life. Plants from 100 worlds grew in harmonious arrangements, waterfalls cascaded into crystal pools, and creatures Tom had never seen before moved peacefully among the foliage. "It's beautiful," Nala whispered, her silver eyes wide with wonder. At the center of this paradise stood 2 pedestals, separated by a small pool of shimmering liquid. On each pedestal rested a crystal identical to those they had activated in the previous tests. "The test of unity begins," the Watcher's voice announced. "To proceed, choose." Tom and Nala approached the pedestals. Above each crystal, a holographic display appeared. Tom showed Earth, his home, his family, the botanical gardens where he had first developed his love of plants. Nala showed her world, strange and beautiful, with the singing forests she had described and floating cities among the clouds. "I don't understand," Tom said. "What are we choosing?" The Watcher appeared before them, more solid than before. "The final test is simple. The first ones mastered the ability to create new worlds, to shape reality itself. This power can now pass to one species, humans or Vardi. Each of you must choose which." Tom looked at the display of Earth with longing. If humans received this power, they could solve their greatest problems: climate change, disease, resource scarcity. Earth could become a paradise like this chamber. His name would be remembered forever as the one who elevated humanity to godlike status. Beside him, Nala stared at her own world with similar emotions playing on her alien face. The Vardi had their own struggles, their own dreams. With this power, they could achieve them all. "Only one can be the inheritor," the Watcher said. "You must each touch a crystal. If you choose the same world, that species inherits. If you choose differently..." The alien paused. "Then neither does, and the chance passes to another time, another discovery." Tom looked at the human crystal, then at Nala. She met his eyes. "I should choose my people," she said softly. "They've searched for this for thousands of years." "I understand," Tom replied. "I should choose mine too. We've only just begun to explore the stars. This could save us from so many mistakes." They stood in silence, the weight of galaxies on their shoulders. 2 people from different worlds, forced to decide the fate of countless billions. The flower, which had accompanied them through all the tests, now floated between them. Its glow pulsed in a pattern that seemed almost questioning. Tom thought back to everything they had experienced. The tests of wisdom, courage, and unity. None had been what they expected. Each had required them to look beyond the obvious, beyond the selfish. "Nala," he said suddenly, "what if we're thinking about this all wrong? What if this isn't the actual test?" Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean? The first ones valued unity above all else, right? But forcing us to choose between our species doesn't promote unity. It creates division." He pointed to the flower. "This whole time, the flower has been guiding us. What if it's trying to show us something now?" Nala's eyes widened with understanding. The pool between the pedestals. Together, they looked at the shimmering liquid separating the 2 crystals. Unlike water, it moved with purpose, forming patterns similar to those on the puzzle box from the first test. Tom reached for Nala's hand. "I think I know what to do." Instead of touching either crystal, they knelt together by the pool. Following an instinct he couldn't explain, Tom gently placed the flower on the surface of the liquid. Nala's 4 hands joined his, supporting the bloom as it made contact. The effect was immediate and astonishing. The flower's light exploded outward, engulfing the entire chamber. The 2 crystals rose from their pedestals and merged with the flower, creating something entirely new, a crystalline structure that contained elements of both, yet was greater than either. The Watcher smiled for the first time. "The test of unity is passed. Not through choosing one over another, but by finding a third path, a path of true unity." The light faded, and they found themselves back on Outpost 7, standing in the laboratory with everyone staring at them in shock. Between them floated not the original flower, but the new creation, a bloom of impossible beauty that contained the merged crystals at its heart. "You have surprised us," the Watcher said, appearing beside them. Throughout the long ages, many species have found the bloom. Some passed the first tests. None understood the true meaning of unity until now. The alien gestured to the ships visible through the laboratory windows. The knowledge of the first ones will not pass to humans alone, or to Vardi alone, but to both together. Neither is complete without the other. Together you will achieve what neither could alone. Captain Reed stepped forward. What does this mean for our peoples? It means, the Watcher said, that humans and Vardi are now bound in a partnership that will reshape this galaxy. The ships contain technology, knowledge, and power beyond your current understanding. Learning to use them, together, is your next great journey. As officials from both species began asking questions and making plans, Tom found himself standing apart with Nala. So, he said with a small smile, did I find you an impossible flower? Nala laughed, the sound musical even through the translator. You found something far more impossible, a future where our peoples walk the stars as one. She looked at the miraculous bloom floating between them, then back at Tom. All because a human was stubborn enough to accept an alien's dare. Tom grinned. Well, that's kind of what humans do best. We see the impossible, and then we do it anyway. As the new bloom pulsed with light between them, neither human nor alien noticed that tiny seedlings had already begun to sprout from the floor around them, the first of many impossible flowers that would mark the beginning of a new age for both their worlds.